By the end of this video, you'll see how a simple kitchen towel and a fat quarter can turn into a practical everyday apron that anyone can make, even if you're a beginner. And by changing the pleats at the top, you can adjust the size to fit a smaller or larger waist. So let me show you how it turned out, and then I'll walk you through each step. Okay, so that all we need is your kitchen towel, and you can use any cotton kitchen towel that you like. These I got on Amazon, and I will list them in the description below. And this fat quarter was in a bundle that I got from Walmart. So I mean, you can use any fat quarter that you like that matches, you know, your towel or that you have in your stash. Okay, and then I'm using some buttons to embellish it. And there's a neat little addition I'm going to add to this apron that has to do with these buttons, and I'll let you know what that is when we get to that section. Okay, so first I'm going to set these buttons aside in my fat quarter. And I'm going to open up our towel and see. These towels measure about 18 by, let's see, it's about 28. So I like an apron that, you know, kind of wraps around me. So it's up to you if you like that or not. You can make this shorter if you want. Also, because it's so wide, it's great to adjust to different size waistlines. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half long ways. And I'm just going to take it and I'm going to cut off the top hem, just because it will make your top a little bit bulky if you don't cut it off. So I'm going to do that, and actually I'm going to turn it inside out so that I can see that hem better because it's a darker towel. Okay, so you just want to cut this top hem off, and then we're going to start to pleat the top of our towel. Okay, so now I've cut the top of my hem off. I'm going to start to pleat the top of it. I'm just going to go and find my center, and you can use a marking pen if you want, but I just set my clip right in here so I know that right at the end of this clip is my middle center. Okay, so now from this end, I'm just going to go in about 3 inches, and I'm going to make a pleat. Let's see, right on the 3 inches, I'm going to take it and fold it to my left about 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll just take my clip and clip that. Okay, and then I'm going to measure over another 2 inches from where the pleat is folded right here. So then I will come in and make another pleat the same size, or about 1/2 of an inch. Okay, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side, and this is for a larger waist. But if you want to make your waistline a little bit smaller, then see, I'll go in and divide the difference here between the center and where I last left off. It's about 5 inches. So you'll go to the 2.5 inch mark and just make another pleat. And you can do as many of these pleats as you want to get it the size that you want. And all you have to do is like measure it up against your waist and decide if it's, you know, small enough for you. Now I like my aprons to wrap around my hips just a little bit, so I like it a little bit larger. Okay, and so then I'll go and I'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'm turning these to where they're going inward. It's going to be a little bit different. And I'm going to put both these sizes in the description below. So you'll have the larger size measurements and the smaller size. So this measures out to be about 18.5. Okay, so now that we have that on here, I'm going to set this aside. And then we can cut our waistline and our ties out of our fat quarter. I'm going to iron this up first, and then I'll give you the measurements. Okay, so what I've done is I've folded my fat quarter short ends together, and I've already cut off the selvage end. So you just want to cut 3, you're just going to make 3 cuts here. You want your first cut to be the 22 by 6.5, and then for your ties, cut 2 ties 22 by 3 inches, And then the remainder of the fabric we're going to use for a pocket for the front. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that and then meet you right back here. Okay, so from our 6.5 by 22 inch length, I cut it down to 20 inches because our waist of the apron was 19. I added an inch to it for the seams. So for the ends, I'm folding them over 1/2 of an inch and then ironing them down. Okay, and then I've done that to both ends. Okay, and then you're just going to make a 1/4 of an inch hem for the top and the bottom. And you'll want to iron those down. Then we're going to fold it over and sew it to the top of our towel. All right, so once we've ironed it down, hemmed all the way around, I'm just going to take it over and match it to the bottom, and I'm going to iron that down again. Okay, so now that we have it all ironed down, we can attach the top. And the way I do this is I'm just going to put about 1/2 of an inch into the top, and then I'm going to turn it and match it. Make sure that it's even on the front and the back. Bring that in so you can see that. Okay, and then I will pin that down or clip it down. Let's put some clips right here. And as you do this, you're going to have to take out your clip if you're using clips, or a pin if you're going to use pins. Slip it underneath here. Make sure it's nice and even. And then place a pin over that pleat so that it'll stay. And you'll do that all along the entire top, pinning it down. And then I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to top stitch just on this edge all the way down. Okay, so I sewed my top stitch and I sewed it about 1/8 of an inch seam allowance because the seam that we folded under to meet that was 1/4 of an inch, and I want to make sure that I did catch the entire hem with the top stitch. So this is just to hold it down right now because now we're going to make our strings and then we'll sew another top stitch above that. Okay, so I'll put this aside for now. And we're going to take our ties that we cut and we're going to fold over 1/4 of an inch seam again on both of the long sides and iron it down. And then we're going to take and fold over 1/2 of an inch seam on the short side, and we're only going to do it to the one end because the other end we're going to leave open to tuck into the band at the top. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that and then I'll show you what the next step is. Okay, so I went ahead and I made all my hems and ironed them down, and I wanted to show you that I put a 1-inch strip of cotton woven interfacing down, and I put it all the way to the edge here of the one seam so that whenever you fold this over, it's going to be right where you want it. And it's just to give it a little bit of body. And so then you'll just meet the edges here, and then you can pin it or put some little clips along the way. And then I'm going to sew all the way around on both sides about a 1/8 inch top stitch around the entire sides. And then I'm going to do that here on the folded end. Make sure that I top stitch that as well. But on this other end, you don't have to do that. Okay, so I'm going to do that and then we'll go on to how to attach them. Okay, I just wanted to show you real quick that if you want your ties to be longer, you can attach another piece of fabric to this end, same size as you have it here, to make them a little bit longer. Now, you'll have to get another fat quarter of the same fabric, or you can use some yardage for your ties instead so that you can make them the length that you like. Okay, so for our next step, I'm going to place the raw edge end of my tie right inside the opening on the ends of the top of the dish towel. So I put it in about 1/2 of an inch inside that opening. And then you can go ahead and you can pin this, stick some clips on each end. I'm going to go ahead and pin it because I want to make sure that it stays straight. And I'll do so on the other side as well. Okay, and I'm placing them so that the ties are about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge here. You can see that. Okay, and I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch down the side here. If you want, you can do 2 rows of top stitching. You can do 1/8 of an inch away and then 1/4 of an inch away from that 1/8 inch. And that'll hold that in there really well. Okay, so now I'll sew this up and we'll go into the pocket. Okay, so now we're going to use the remaining piece of our back quarter, and it measures out to be 22 by 5 3/4 of an inch. And it's all one piece. I'm just going to use it like this. Rather than cutting it, I'm going to turn it right sides together and fold it in half. It's like this. So now I'm going to go to the machine and we're going to sew all the way around. I'm going to use a clip to mark where I'm going to start my sewing and end my sewing. So that I'll start right here and go all the way around and stop here. And I'm going to backstitch on both of these where you start and you end. And then that way we'll have this opening to turn it out. Okay? Okay, so I finished sewing the pocket all the way around and left an opening here. And I cut a little bit of the corners here with some scissors just to make sure that whenever we turn it out, the corners will be a little bit more pointed. Okay, and so now all we have to do is turn it right side out. And if you don't have a turning tool, you can use a pencil to get into the corners. I have a turning tool, but I've misplaced it. Just anything that has like a point. You can even use your scissors, the point of your scissors, but just gotta be careful not to go through the fabric, because I've done that before. Just giving it a nice little point. Okay, and then once you've finished, then I'll just go and I'll iron this with the iron nice and straight, and then you'll tuck in the top opening so that's even with the rest here. And then you just go and top stitch all the way around, and I would use an 1/8 of an inch top stitch so that when we go to attach our pocket to the front of our apron, then you'll go just a little bit like 1/8 away from that stitch to attach it. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch it. Okay, so for this next step, all we need to do is place our pocket on the front of our apron. And I folded the apron in half to find my center, and I'm using this clip so that I know that right here where I place my clip on this line is the center of my apron. So next, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure up 4 inches. So I want to make sure that I'm going 4 inches from the bottom. And then we're going to take our pocket and I'm going to find the center of it as well. And then I'll mark it again with a clip so that I know right here on the right side of this clip is my center. You can use a marking tool, of course, if you want to. I'm just using my clips. I'm going to line that up here and make sure that I've got it 4 inches up from the bottom. And I'll do the same thing on this side. Make sure it's even. And so now I'm going to pin this down. And then once you pin it down, you'll just go and sew down your sides here and all across the bottom and leave the top open. And if you want, you can sew right down the center and make 2 pockets next to each other. But I'm just going to leave the whole thing open. And when I go to sew, since I've already sewed a 1/8 inch top stitch here, I'm going to go and sew from that 1/8 inch out to another 1/8 of an inch to sew the pocket on here. And you can go over the first 1/8 inch again if you want, just to give it a little bit more security. Okay, so I'm going to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have our pocket sewn on, and now we can go on to the embellishments. So to embellish this, like I showed you on the first apron that I made, I went ahead and I put buttons here and here just to accent our ties. And then I made like a yo-yo, and I put a button on top of it and sewed it on top. and then one on the pocket. So I'm going to do the same thing as I did on this one to the gray one, but I'm not going to put one in the middle here. I'm going to leave this plain on the gray one. But I've got some buttons here, so just a neutral color, so they'll match nicely. And I'll put one again right here on the pocket in the middle. And I'm using some burgundy thread to sew these on there because there's a little bit of burgundy in the fabric. So I want to bring that out by just using some burgundy thread to sew these on. And I'm sewing them on by hand. So you can use your sewing machine if you want. Okay, so when I'm done with this, I'm going to show you a little bit of a bonus idea that I had for the apron. Our apron is all finished. And for the bonus idea that I promised you, I thought that, when you're going around, you're cooking or you're cleaning, you might need an extra rag on hand, one that you want to carry with you in case you need it. So I just use a washcloth here, but you can use any kind of washcloth or towel or kitchen towel or dust rag that you need. And you just go in there at the top and make a buttonhole. Then you can attach it to the button right here on one of the sides of your apron. And that way it'll be with you while you're cleaning or cooking. And if you need it, you just unattach it and you got it to use. And that's all there is to it. A simple apron made with cotton kitchen towels and a fat quarter. I love projects like this because they're so practical and easy to customize and made from things you probably already have on hand. So if you enjoy this project, I hope you'll give it a try and make it your own. Thank you so much for spending this time sewing with me. I'd love for you to subscribe and join me again. And check out this next video tutorial for more things you can make with kitchen towels. See you in the next one.